Dae-young Kim has 48 hours before his family realizes he's chasing his grandfather's forbidden secret. Jada Williams has even less time before her criminal organization discovers she's partnered with a foreign operative. Neither plan to find matching tattoos on each other's bodies. Geometric patterns that form a complete treasure map only when they stand together. Billions in hidden artifacts buried somewhere in the eastern part of Africa. Two strangers who can't access it without each other. And both their families closing in fast. Some legacies are carved in ink. This one might be written in blood. Tiny favor. If this is hitting different, show some love with a like and subscribe. It's instant and pushes this to people who need it. Thanks. Now back to the story. Dae-young Kim didn't come to Georgia for art. The heir to Seoul's most ruthless crime syndicate stepped off his private jet with one objective. Finalize a weapons deal worth $30 million, then disappear back across the Pacific before anyone noticed he'd been there. Clean. Efficient. Exactly how his family had operated for 3 generations. Savannah's humid air hit him like a wall. Different from Seoul's pollution-thick atmosphere. This heat carried salt and history, clinging to expensive suits and betraying nervousness through sweat. His security detail fanned out across the tarmac, their movements precise as surgical cuts. The meeting's in 6 hours, his lieutenant Minho said in Korean. The Americans are getting impatient. Dae-young adjusted his cufflinks, white gold, engraved with his family crest. Let them wait. Desperation drives down prices. Everything was a negotiation in his world. Trust was currency. Weakness was death. He'd built his reputation on being untouchable. Cold. The kind of man who could order executions over breakfast and discuss quarterly earnings over the bodies. Seoul's underworld whispered his name with the same reverence they once reserved for his grandfather. The legendary smuggler who'd made the Kim family untouchable during the chaos of the Korean War. But nobody talked about how his grandfather had disappeared for 3 years during that war. Or where he'd gone. Or why he'd returned with intricate tattoos covering half his torso and a fortune that built their empire. Those questions died with the old man. Some secrets stayed buried. Dae-young's phone buzzed. Another text from his father. Don't embarrass the family name. As if he ever had. 6 hours until the deal. He could afford a distraction. Minho had mentioned an art gallery downtown. Exclusive, invitation only. The kind of place where Atlanta's elite laundered money through 7-figure paintings and called it culture. Take me to the gallery, Dae-young said. Minho's eyebrows rose. Sir. You said it was worth seeing. I said it was a good investment opportunity. The owner moves merchandise from Africa and Asia. High-end pieces with questionable provenance. Which meant stolen. Looted. Artifacts that belonged in museums, but ended up in private collections instead. Dae-young's kind of people. The gallery occupied a converted warehouse in Savannah's historic district. Exposed brick, floor-to-ceiling windows, the aesthetic of old money trying to look bohemian. A small bronze plaque beside the door read, Williams Gallery, by appointment only. Inside, the space breathed old-world elegance mixed with something dangerous. African masks lined one wall, their hollow eyes tracking visitors. Asian ceramics rested on pedestals like religious offerings. Everything carefully lit, strategically placed, worth more than most people earned in a lifetime. And standing in the center of it all, examining a bronze sculpture with the intensity of a jeweler studying a diamond. Her. Jada Williams turned when the door chimed, and Dae-young forgot why he'd walked in. She wore a burgundy dress that somehow managed to be both elegant and devastating, the kind of outfit that made you forget your own name. Her hair was pulled back, revealing a face that could have been carved from the same stone as the sculptures surrounding her. But it was her eyes that stopped him, dark, assessing, missing nothing. We're closed, she said. Her voice carried the smooth authority of someone who never repeated herself. Dae-young smiled. The door was unlocked. That's not an invitation. I'm looking for art. Then try a museum. She turned back to her sculpture, dismissing him like he was a tourist who'd wandered into the wrong building. Nobody dismissed Dae-young Kim. He walked deeper into the gallery, hands in his pockets, studying the pieces with genuine interest. A Tang Dynasty vase that probably left China in a shipping container marked ceramics. A Benin bronze that should have been in Nigeria. A Korean celadon from the Goryeo period that made his chest tighten with unexpected recognition. You have good taste, he said. I have expensive taste. Jada moved to intercept him, positioning herself between Dae-young and a collection of small jade figurines. Protective. Territorial. These pieces aren't for casual browsers. Do I look casual? She studied him then, really looked. And he saw the exact moment she clocked his tailored suit, his watch that cost more than a car, the way his security detail waited outside like patient wolves. You look like trouble, she said. I get that a lot. And yet you keep walking into places you're not wanted. Maybe I enjoy the challenge. He stopped in front of a painting, Korean, early 20th century, depicting a mountain landscape rendered in traditional ink wash. This is from Jumgangsan, the Diamond Mountains. You know Korean art? I know a lot of things. He met her eyes, including that this painting was reported stolen from a private collection in Busan 2 years ago. Jada's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her posture. A predator recognizing another predator. If you're a cop, you're in the wrong jurisdiction. Not a cop. Then who are you? Someone who appreciates art that's traveled interesting routes. A slow smile curved her lips. Dangerous. You're Korean. Is that a problem? Depends. She circled him like she was appraising a sculpture, evaluating worth and authenticity. Are you planning to report my interesting routes to anyone? I'm planning to buy something. We don't sell to walk-ins. I'm not a walk-in. I'm a very interested collector with $30 million burning a hole in my account. He gestured at the painting. How much? More than you're willing to pay. Try me. 200,000. He pulled out his phone without hesitation. Wire transfer or cash? That stopped her. For the first time since he'd walked in, Jada Williams looked genuinely surprised. You're serious? I never joke about money. Or art, apparently. She studied him with new intensity, reassessing. What's your interest in Korean pieces specifically? Heritage. Nostalgia. The same reason people overpay for things that remind them of home. You don't strike me as the nostalgic type. You don't know me. I know men who throw money around to impress women. I know men who collect art as investment portfolios. I know men who use galleries to launder dirty money. Her eyes narrowed. Which one are you? All three, Dae-young said honestly. Does it matter? Jada laughed, a genuine sound that transformed her face from beautiful to devastating. At least you're honest about being crooked. Honesty's underrated in my line of work. Which is? Import-export. The standard lie. Family business. We move merchandise across borders. So do I. She extended her hand. Jada Williams. Dae-young Kim. Her handshake was firm, confident. The grip of someone who'd negotiated with warlords and politicians and knew the difference was mostly academic. Something electric passed between them when their hands touched. Recognition, maybe. Or warning. Jada pulled away first. The painting's yours if you're serious. But I need to verify funds first. Can't be too careful. Understandable. He sent the wire transfer information to Minho with a quick text. It'll clear in 20 minutes. Efficient. I don't like waiting. Neither do I. She gestured toward a back room. Would you like to see the rest of my collection while we wait? The interesting pieces aren't out front. Of course they weren't. The real merchandise. The pieces too hot to display, too valuable to leave where casual observers might recognize them. Those stayed hidden until serious buyers emerged. Dae-young followed her through a doorway concealed behind a silk screen. The back room was temperature-controlled, dimly lit, packed with artifacts that probably had Interpol alerts attached to them. How long have you been doing this? He asked. The gallery? 5 years. The acquisitions? She smiled. That's a family business too. My great-grandmother started it. During the war? Which war? There's always a war. Jada ran her fingers along a wooden mask, almost tender. She understood that chaos creates opportunity. Colonial forces stole from Africa for centuries. She just redistributed some of it. Robin Hood with worse morals. Better business sense. She turned to face him. Your grandfather was a smuggler during the Korean War, wasn't he? Dae-young stilled. How did you? Kim family. Souls underground. It's not exactly a secret if you know where to look. Her smile sharpened. I do my research on potential clients, especially ones who walk in offering 6 figures for a single painting. Thorough. Paranoid. There's a difference. She moved closer, close enough that he could smell her perfume. Something dark and expensive. Your grandfather disappeared for 3 years during the war. 1951 to 1954. Nobody knows where he went. Family legend says he was running weapons through Southeast Asia. Family legends are usually lies wrapped in mythology. Her eyes searched his face. What if he was somewhere else entirely? Like where? Like Africa. The room suddenly felt smaller. Hotter. Dae-young's pulse kicked up for reasons that had nothing to do with attraction and everything to do with the way Jada was looking at him. Like she knew something he didn't. That's impossible, he said. Is it? Because I have documents suggesting a Korean smuggler worked with my great-grandmother in 1952. They moved artifacts out of territories under colonial control, hid them from the British and French forces trying to steal everything that wasn't nailed down. You're saying our grandparents knew each other. I'm saying they might have been partners. Dae-young's phone buzzed. Min-ho, transfer confirmed. The painting's yours. But he wasn't thinking about the painting anymore. He was thinking about his grandfather's tattoos. The intricate geometric patterns that covered the old man's ribs and back. Designs that looked nothing like traditional Korean work. Patterns his grandfather never explained. Questions he never answered. Did your great-grandmother have tattoos? The question slipped out before he could stop it. Jada's expression shifted. Guarded. Why? My grandfather did. Unusual ones. What kind of unusual? Geometric. Symmetrical. They covered his entire torso and back. My father said he got them during the missing years, but nobody knew where or why. The silence stretched between them like a live wire. Mine did too, Jada finally said. Her voice had dropped to barely a whisper. My great-grandmother. She had tattoos across her shoulders and spine. The family story was that they were traditional African symbols, protection marks from her village. But they didn't match any traditional patterns I've ever found. And I've looked. Believe me, I've looked. They stared at each other across 3 feet of climate-controlled air and 70 years of mystery. This is crazy, Dae-young said. Completely insane. We're talking about 2 people who died decades ago, on opposite sides of the world, who might have known each other, might have worked together, and got matching tattoos for reasons nobody bothered explaining to their descendants. Jada laughed, but it sounded strained. When you say it out loud, it sounds like a conspiracy theory. My entire life is a conspiracy theory. Dae-young ran a hand through his hair, destroying its perfect styling. I have a meeting in 4 hours. A very important, very illegal meeting that I should be preparing for. But I need to know if you're serious about this connection. Dead serious. Jada pulled out her phone, scrolling through photos until she found what she wanted. This is the only picture I have of my great-grandmother's tattoos. She hated being photographed, but someone caught her at a family gathering in 1965, right before she died. She handed him the phone. The image was old, grainy, black and white. But even through the poor quality, he could see them. Intricate patterns spreading across an elderly woman's shoulders. Geometric shapes that seemed to flow into each other like water. Shapes that looked exactly like the tattoos on his grandfather's back. Dae-young's hands started shaking. I need to show you something. He pulled up a photo on his own phone. A picture he'd found years ago while going through family archives. His grandfather at age 60, shirtless on a beach, the tattoos clearly visible across his ribs and back. Jada took the phone. Went completely still. Holy shit, she breathed. They match. They don't just match. She zoomed in, comparing the photos side by side. They're complementary. Look at these lines here. On your grandfather, they end abruptly. But on my great-grandmother, they continue. It's like they're 2 halves of the same design. Exactly. Jada looked up at him, and for the first time since they'd met, he saw genuine fear in her eyes. What the hell did they do? Dae-young's mind raced through possibilities, each more unlikely than the last. Matching tattoos. Hidden for decades. 2 people who disappeared from their respective families at the same time, then returned with identical markings and unexplained wealth. You think they found something? I think they hid something, and marked their bodies with the location. They stood in that climate-controlled room surrounded by stolen artifacts, 2 strangers bound by ink and ancestry, and the weight of secrets that should have died with their grandparents. Yeah, matching tattoos that form a treasure map. If that's not worth a like, I don't know what is. Hit subscribe because the next discovery is even better. I have those tattoos, Jada said quietly. Everything stopped. What? The same tattoos. Exactly where my great-grandmother had hers. She touched her shoulder, her back. I got them when I turned 21. Family tradition. Every firstborn daughter inherits the marks. Dae-young's mouth had gone dry. I have them too. The room temperature seemed to drop 20 degrees. "Show me," Jada demanded. "Here. Right now." He should have said no. Should have walked out, completed his deal, flown back to Seoul, and forgotten this entire insane afternoon. But instead, he unbuttoned his shirt. The tattoos started at his collarbone. Geometric patterns that flowed down his chest, wrapped around his ribs, spread across his back in an intricate map of lines and symbols that he'd worn since age 18. Family tradition. Every firstborn son inherited the marks. Marks nobody had ever been able to explain. Jada circled him slowly, her fingers hovering inches from his skin, tracing patterns in the air. "Turn around." He did. Felt her sharp intake of breath. "The lines continue," she whispered. "From your shoulder blade down to. They end here. Right at your lower back. Where yours begin. I need to check." The zipper of her dress sounded impossibly loud in the quiet room. Jada turned her back to him, lowering the burgundy fabric to her waist. Dae-young had seen beautiful women before, had seen art that made men weep, but nothing prepared him for the sight of those tattoos. The exact same geometric patterns that decorated his own skin, flowing across her shoulders and down her spine in perfect, impossible symmetry. "Come closer," Jada said. He stepped forward. The lines on his chest ended in sharp points. The patterns on her back began with matching points, perfectly aligned. "Stand behind me," she instructed. Dae-young positioned himself at her back, close enough to feel her body heat, and suddenly he understood. The tattoos matched perfectly. His patterns flowed seamlessly into hers, creating one continuous design that only existed when they stood together. A complete map etched across two bodies, separated by gender and geography and 7 decades of silence. "We need to document this," Jada said, her voice shaking. "Now." She set up her phone camera, angling it to capture both of them. His chest against her back, the tattoos forming their complete pattern. The shutter clicked once, twice, 3 times. When they separated, Jada pulled up the images and they both stared at what the camera had captured. It wasn't just tattoos. It was a map, coordinates hidden in the geometric patterns, landmarks disguised as cultural symbols, a treasure trail carved into flesh, designed to only appear when 2 specific people stood together. "This is impossible," Dae-young said. "This is incredible." Jada zoomed in on different sections, her analytical mind already working. "Look at these symbols here. They're navigational markers. And these patterns, they correspond to geographic features. Mountains, rivers, specific locations. Our grandparents made a map. Our grandparents made us into a map. Why? Because whatever they hid was valuable enough to literally write into their bloodline." Dae-young thought about his family's unexplained wealth. The fortune his grandfather had returned with in 1954 that built their criminal empire. Money that came from nowhere, explained by nobody, questioned by no one who wanted to stay breathing. "How much do you think it's worth?" he asked. Jada's eyes gleamed. "If they went to this much trouble, billions." His phone buzzed. "Min-ho, Americans are here. Meeting starts in 1 hour." Right. The weapons deal. The actual reason he'd flown 8,000 miles. The transaction that would cement his reputation and prove to his father that he could handle international operations without supervision. But suddenly, 30 million seemed insignificant compared to the treasure map literally written on his skin. "I have to go," he said, not moving. "Where?" "Business meeting. Important one." "More important than this?" "Yes." "No." He didn't know anymore. "I'll come back," Dae-young said. "After my meeting. We need to decode this properly, figure out what they hid and where." "Agreed." Jada pulled her dress back up. "All business now. But we're partners on this. 50-50 split of whatever we find. You don't even know if I'm trustworthy. You're a criminal. I'm a criminal. We're both motivated by profit. That's the most trustworthy basis for partnership I can imagine." She extended her hand. "Deal." He should have negotiated. Should have demanded better terms, more control, some leverage. But looking at Jada Williams, this brilliant, dangerous woman who literally held half of a 70-year-old secret on her skin, all he could think was that 50-50 seemed perfectly fair. "Deal," he said, shaking her hand. That electric current again. Stronger this time. Recognition or warning or something else entirely. "One condition," Jada added. "Whatever we find, we split before anyone else finds out. No families, no organizations, no authorities. Because our respective criminal empires would kill us for keeping this secret. because our respective criminal empires would kill us for the treasure. Much more efficient to split it quietly, then disappear with our shares before anyone knows what we found. Smart. Ruthless. Exactly how he would have approached it. I like the way you think, Dae-young said. I like the way you don't ask stupid questions about trust and honor. Jada walked him back through the gallery toward the exit. When's your meeting done? 3 hours, maybe 4. Come back tonight. Bring any family documents you have about your grandfather's missing years. Letters, photos, anything that might give us context. I have his journals. He wrote everything in Korean, but I can translate. Perfect. I have my great-grandmother's letters. She wrote to her sister back home, described some of her operations. Jada opened the gallery door. Between his journals and her letters, maybe we can piece together what actually happened in 1952. And what they buried. And how we're going to find it. Dae-young stepped outside, back into Savannah's humid evening air. Min-ho waited by the car, expression carefully neutral despite the fact that his boss had just spent 2 hours inside when the meeting was in 45 minutes. Sir? Min-ho asked. Drive, Dae-young said. Fast. As the car pulled away, he looked back at the gallery. Jada stood in the doorway, backlit by warm interior lights, watching him leave. Even from a distance, he could feel the intensity of her gaze. His phone buzzed again. His father. The Americans are waiting. Don't fuck this up. But all Dae-young could think about was the map on his skin, the woman who held its other half, and the treasure that had been waiting 70 years for 2 people to stand close enough to read the directions. The weapons deal went exactly as planned, which meant Dae-young barely paid attention to any of it. He sat across from 3 Americans who thought they were intimidating. Ex-military types with poorly concealed carry permits, and the kind of confidence that came from never facing real consequences. They wanted automatic weapons. He had suppliers in Eastern Europe who'd sell to anyone with cash. Standard transaction, standard profit margin, standard risk. Except he couldn't stop thinking about geometric patterns, and a woman whose skin held answers to questions his family had forbidden him from asking. Mr. Kim, the lead American, Jackson or Jensen, something generic, snapped his fingers. You still with us? Dae-young refocused, sliding back into the role he'd perfected over a decade of criminal negotiations. Cold, efficient, bored by anything that didn't involve money or power. I'm waiting for you to make a decision, he said in perfect English. The price is $30 million. Not negotiable. Not flexible. You either have the capital or you're wasting my time. That's 15% higher than your initial quote. Market fluctuations. Supply chain issues. Call it whatever helps you sleep at night. He stood, buttoning his jacket with the finality of a closing door. I have other interested parties. Better organized ones. The room's tension ratcheted up several notches. Min-ho's hand moved subtly toward his concealed weapon. The Americans exchanged glances, the kind of silent communication that meant someone was about to do something stupid. Dae-young had dealt with stupid before, usually with bullets. 30 million, Jackson finally said. But we need delivery in 2 weeks, not 4. 3 weeks. My logistics don't bend to your timeline. 2.5. Done. Dae-young extended his hand. The deal closed with a handshake that meant absolutely nothing. Honor among thieves was a fairy tale people told themselves before betraying each other. Wire transfer protocols will be sent within the hour. Fuck with my money, and I'll personally ensure your operation disappears. Likewise, Jackson said, all teeth and no warmth. The meeting dissolved into technical details that Min-ho handled. Dae-young stepped outside onto a balcony overlooking Savannah's waterfront, the Savannah River reflecting city lights like scattered diamonds. His phone showed 3 missed calls from his father and 1 text from an unknown number. Unknown. Found something in the letters. You need to see this. JW. Jada. He'd given her his number before leaving the gallery, a practical exchange that now felt loaded with implications he wasn't ready to examine. He texted back, meeting wrapping up. 1 hour. The response came immediately. Bring those journals. This is bigger than we thought. Of course it was. Nothing in his life had ever been simple. Min-ho joined him on the balcony, lighting a cigarette despite Dae-young's repeated comments about the habit being antiquated and obvious. The Americans will try to renegotiate the price after delivery, Min-ho said in Korean. Obviously. And we'll kill them if they do. Obviously. Dae-young watched boats move along the river, their lights cutting through darkness. I need you to do something off the books. Minho's expression didn't change, but his attention sharpened. Sir, my grandfather's journals. The ones from the war years. Find them. Bring them to me. Don't tell my father. May I ask why? No. Then I'll have them within the hour. Minho stubbed out his cigarette. Should I be concerned about this gallery owner you spent 2 hours with? Probably. Is she a threat? Dae-young thought about Jada's eyes, her quick mind, the way she'd immediately understood the implications of their matching tattoos without needing explanations or hand-holding. Thought about how she'd negotiated a 50-50 split before he'd even finished processing the discovery. She's a partner, he said. In what? Something that has nothing to do with weapons deals or family business. He turned to face his lieutenant. Whatever I'm doing with her stays between us. No reports to Seoul, no updates to my father, no operational oversight. Understood. Minho studied him with the careful assessment of someone who'd known him since childhood, who'd seen him evolve from the boss's son into the boss himself. You're going after your grandfather's secret. It wasn't a question. I'm going after answers, Dae-young corrected. What I do with those answers is my business. Your father won't like being kept in the dark. My father has spent my entire life keeping me in the dark about where our fortune came from. Turnabout feels fair. Minho nodded slowly. The journals will be delivered to your hotel within the hour. Anything else? Discretion. Always, sir. Dae-young returned to his hotel, a renovated historic building that charged obscene rates for the privilege of sleeping in rooms where Civil War generals had once planned battles. His suite overlooked the city, all exposed brick and carefully curated Southern charm. The journals arrived 30 minutes later, delivered by courier in a locked case that Minho had somehow procured from the family vault back in Seoul. Digital scans transmitted across secure networks, then printed and bound in leather that still smelled faintly of his grandfather's study. Dae-young poured himself whiskey and opened the first journal. His grandfather's handwriting was precise, methodical. Each character formed with the care of someone who understood that written words outlived their authors. The entries started in 1950, right before the Korean War erupted into full chaos. June 23, 1950. The situation deteriorates daily. Father insists I stay and defend the family interests. I've made other arrangements. July 8, 1950. Departed Seoul under cover of refugee movement. Nobody notices one more young man fleeing south. They should. August 15, 1950. Made contact with suppliers in Busan. The Americans are flooding the peninsula with weapons and money. Opportunity presents itself to those willing to look beyond the obvious. Standard entries for a smuggler learning his trade during wartime. Nothing unusual. Nothing that explained the missing 3 years, or the tattoos, or the fortune. Then the entries stopped. Completely. A gap from August 1950 to January 1954. 3.5 years of silence. When they resumed, the tone had changed entirely. January 12, 1954. Returned home. Father asks no questions, which means he knows better than to expect answers. The family business is now properly funded. What we accomplished will remain buried as agreed. Some fortunes are built on secrets that must stay secret. January 20th, 1954. The marks burn in certain weather. Reminder of what was done, what was hidden, what was promised. She has her half. I have mine. Neither complete without the other. Perfect security through separation. February 3rd, 1954. If my descendants are reading this, know that what we buried was earned through blood and sacrifice. Not stolen. Liberated from those who stole it first. The map exists for a reason. Use it wisely. Trust only the one who bears the matching marks. Dae-young read the passage 3 times, his pulse accelerating with each repetition. His grandfather had planned this. The tattoos weren't random tradition. They were intentional inheritance, a treasure map passed down through bloodlines with the explicit expectation that someday, someone would decode it. His phone buzzed. Jada, are you coming or did the Americans kill you? He texted back, on my way. You're not going to believe what I found. Same. Move faster. The Williams Gallery was dark when Dae-young arrived, but the door was unlocked. He found Jada in the back room, surrounded by papers and photographs spread across every flat surface like a detective's investigation board. Your great-grandmother kept everything, she said without preamble, not looking up from a yellowed letter she was examining with a jeweler's loupe. Letters to her sister, shipping manifests disguised as family recipes, coded messages that looked like gossip but were actually operational details. My grandfather kept journals. Dae-young set the leather-bound volumes on the table. 3 years of entries missing, then one line about marks that burn and fortunes built on secrets. That got her attention. "Show me." He opened to the relevant page. Jada read quickly, her eyes moving across Korean characters she couldn't translate, but seemed to understand through context and implication. "She has her half. I have mine," she read aloud. "He's talking about my great-grandmother. And the map. Look. Neither complete without the other. Perfect security through separation. They were lovers." Jada's voice carried certainty. "These letters reference a Korean partner multiple times. She calls him the Mountain Man. Apparently that's what she called him because he was from a country of mountains and wouldn't tell her his real name at first. Operational security or cultural barrier? Both probably. But listen to this." She picked up another letter, translated as she read. "The Mountain Man says we must mark ourselves with the directions. His people have traditions of ink and permanence. Mine have scarification and story. We will combine both methods, create something new. If we die, the secret dies with us. If we live, we can pass it to those who inherit our blood and our burdens." So they got tattoos together. They got tattoos that only work together. Look at these shipping manifests. Jada spread 3 documents across the table. Between 1951 and 1953, my great-grandmother moved cargo through 4 different countries: Egypt, Sudan, Ethiopia, and Kenya. Always heading south, always avoiding colonial checkpoints. Following the map. Creating the map. These locations correspond to symbols in our tattoos. She pulled up the photos they'd taken earlier, zooming in on specific sections. This pattern here, it matches the coordinates for Khartoum. And this one, Addis Ababa. They were documenting their route as they traveled. Dae-young felt the pieces clicking together with the satisfying precision of a well-engineered lock. They weren't just hiding treasure. They were moving it, taking something from one location and burying it somewhere else. Somewhere that required both of them to document because it was too dangerous for one person to know the complete route. Where did they end up? Jada traced the patterns on the photograph, following lines that flowed from his torso to her back, connecting points like a constellation. Based on these coordinates and the progression of symbols, Tanzania, somewhere in the interior, probably the Serengeti region. That's massive. Hundreds of miles of wilderness. Which is why we need the complete map to narrow it down. She looked up at him, excitement and calculation warring in her expression. They buried something in Tanzania in 1953, then separated permanently. He went back to Korea, she returned to Georgia, and neither ever retrieved it. Because retrieving it required both of them, and they could never risk being together again. Colonial authorities were looking for both of them. Your grandfather had Korean intelligence and American forces hunting him for war profiteering. My great-grandmother had the British and French tracking her for artifact smuggling. Together, they would have been too visible. So they went home, built their separate fortunes from whatever seed money they'd kept, and waited. For us, Jada finished. For descendants who could complete what they started. The enormity of it settled over Dae-young like a physical weight. His entire life, his family's entire empire, had been built on the foundation of his grandfather's missing years. And now he held the key to understanding exactly what those years had produced. "What do you think they buried?" he asked. Based on the shipping volumes and the risks they took, Jada's smile was sharp enough to cut. Artifacts looted from African territories during colonial occupation. Probably art and cultural treasures that were being shipped to European museums and private collections. Your grandfather helped her intercept the shipments, and they hid everything somewhere colonial authorities would never think to look. In the middle of Tanzania, where it's been sitting for 70 years, gaining value. Conservative estimate. She pulled up her laptop, fingers flying across the keyboard. African art and artifacts from that era, if authenticated and sold properly, could fetch 50 to 100 million on the black market today. That's not billions. That's if we sell them piecemeal. Jada's eyes gleamed. But what if they didn't just take random pieces? What if they were strategic? Your grandfather was a smuggler. He knew value. My great-grandmother was a resistance fighter. She knew what mattered to her people. Together, they would have targeted the most significant artifacts. Crown jewels, royal regalia, Historical pieces that museums would kill for. Pieces that entire countries would pay ransoms to recover. She turned the laptop toward him. Benin bronzes stolen by the British in 1897. Ethiopian crowns taken during colonial invasion. Ashanti gold seized from Ghana. If they collected even a fraction of these. The screen showed auction results and museum valuations. Conservative estimates started at 500 million. Optimistic projections reached into the billions. Dae-Young's whiskey sat forgotten. We need to go to Tanzania. We need a better map first. Jada pulled out a large sheet of paper and began sketching, translating their tattoos into a two-dimensional guide. The coordinates will get us to the region, but the specific location requires decoding these cultural symbols. Your grandfather used Korean navigational markers. I need you to translate them. They worked through the night, decoding ink into directions, translating symbols into steps. His knowledge of Korean geography combined with her understanding of African landmarks, creating a trail that spanned 2 continents and 7 decades. Here, Dae-Young said around 3 a.m., pointing to a specific pattern on his ribs. This is a Korean symbol for Hidden Valley. It appears 3 times in the sequence, always paired with this African symbol. That's Swahili for beneath the baobab. Jada's hand trembled slightly as she marked the paper. They buried it in a valley with a baobab tree. Probably multiple trees, but one specific enough that these symbols would identify it. How many baobab trees are there in Tanzania? Thousands. But how many are in hidden valleys in the Serengeti region that match these topographical features? She cross-referenced with satellite imagery, narrowing the search. Maybe 12 locations. Possibly fewer. Still too many to search without attracting attention. Then we narrow it further. Jada zoomed in on their tattoo photos, examining details invisible to casual observation. These microsymbols here, they're not navigational. They're temporal. Meaning they indicate seasonal changes. Look, this pattern appears only during specific months. Rainy season versus dry season, when certain landmarks would be visible or obscured. Her fingers traced the patterns. They're telling us when to look, not just where. When? Late August through September. Dry season in Tanzania. When water levels drop and expose landmarks that are submerged the rest of the year. Dae-Young checked his calendar. That's 3 months away, which gives us time to plan properly. We can't just fly to Tanzania and start digging. We need permits, local guides, cover stories. Safari expedition. Wildlife photography. Rich tourists doing rich tourist things. While secretly following a 70-year-old treasure map tattooed on our bodies. Totally normal vacation. Jada's laugh was slightly unhinged. The sound of someone who'd been awake too long chasing impossible possibilities. This is insane. This is the best lead either of us has ever had. This is also incredibly dangerous. If anyone in our respective criminal families finds out what we're doing, they'll kill us for the treasure, or kill us for the betrayal. Keeping this kind of secret from family organizations is a death sentence. Dae-Young thought about his father, about the expectations and obligations that came with being heir to an empire built on his grandfather's mysterious fortune. Thought about the life he'd been groomed for, ruthless, efficient, emotionally sterile. Then he thought about billions in hidden treasure and a woman who understood exactly how trapped they both were. What if we didn't go back? He asked quietly. Jada stilled. What? After we find it? After we recover whatever's buried there? What if we split it, liquidate our shares, and disappear? New identities, new continents, completely off the grid. You'd abandon your family's empire? You'd abandon yours? They stared at each other across a table covered in maps and secrets and decisions that would reshape their entire futures. I've been running this gallery for 5 years, Jada said slowly. Building my own operation, separate from my family's network. My mother expects me to eventually take over the full organization. Smuggling routes across 3 continents, buyers in every major city, the whole dynasty. And you don't want it. I want to choose my own legacy. Not inherit one carved into my skin before I was born. Same. Dae-Young felt something loosen in his chest. A tension he'd carried so long he'd forgotten it wasn't permanent. My father has other sons. My brothers would fight over the sole operation like dogs over meat. Me disappearing would solve his succession problems. You think he'd just let you go? I think if I vanished with enough money to never be a threat, he'd eventually decide it wasn't worth hunting me. He paused. What about your family? My mother would be furious. My cousins would celebrate. More territory for them to carve up. But if I walked away clean, no betrayals or power grabs, just gone. Jada's expression turned thoughtful. She might respect the escape. So we're doing this. We're doing this. They shook hands again. The gesture that had started this entire impossible partnership, now sealing an agreement that would reshape both their lives. Dae-young's phone buzzed, his father calling for the fourth time that night. I have to take this, he said. Jada nodded, turning back to her maps. Dae-young stepped into the gallery's main room, answering in Korean. Father, where have you been? His father's voice carried the sharp edge of suspicion refined over decades of criminal leadership. Minho says the deal closed successfully, but you've been unreachable for 6 hours. Following a lead. On. Grandfather's legacy. Silence. Dangerous silence. That's not your concern, his father finally said. It became my concern when I discovered the tattoos have meaning. When I found out they're not just tradition, they're a map. More silence. Dae-young could practically hear his father's thoughts recalibrating, adjusting strategies, calculating risks. What kind of map? His father asked carefully. The kind that leads to answers about where our fortune originated. The kind that grandfather apparently intended for US to follow eventually. Dae-young. His father's voice dropped to the tone that had preceded executions. Whatever you think you've discovered, walk away. Your grandfather's business during those years is closed. Finished. There's nothing to find that would benefit you. Then why hide it? Because some secrets protect the people who keep them. Because stirring up 70-year-old mysteries attracts exactly the kind of attention our family has spent decades avoiding. Or because there's something valuable enough that you don't want me finding it independently. His father's laugh was bitter. You think this is about money? We have money. We have power. We have everything your grandfather built. What we don't have is the luxury of indulging curiosity about the past. I'm following the map, Dae-young said flatly. With or without your blessing. Then you're doing it without family protection. Without operational support. Without the network that's kept you alive this long. Understood. And if you get yourself killed chasing ghosts, I'll tell your brothers you died stupidly. Fair. The line went dead. Dae-young stood in the dark gallery, surrounded by stolen art and the weight of a decision that would separate him from everything he'd ever known. Jada appeared in the doorway. Bad conversation? My father just disowned me. My mother will do the same when she finds out. She held up her phone. She's been calling all night. I've been ignoring her. What happens when she stops calling and starts sending people? Then we'd better be in Tanzania by the time they arrive. They returned to the maps, planning routes and timelines and exit strategies. 2 criminals plotting a heist that had been waiting 70 years for exactly the right combination of desperation and inherited ink. August, Jada said. We leave in August, search during September, extract by October. 3 months to prepare. 3 months to liquidate assets we can't carry. Establish new identities. Create exit strategies that don't end with bullets. 3 months to decode the rest of these symbols and figure out exactly what we're looking for. And 3 months to decide if we trust each other enough to actually split this fairly. Dae-young met her eyes. Do you trust me? Not even slightly. Good. I don't trust you either. Perfect foundation for a partnership. They smiled at each other. 2 predators circling an opportunity too large to pass up, too dangerous to approach carelessly, too tempting to walk away from. Outside, dawn was breaking over Savannah. The city was waking up to a normal day, oblivious to the fact that 2 people in an art gallery had just decided to chase a fortune buried in African soil and risk everything they'd ever known. Dae-young's phone showed another missed call from his father. Jada's showed 3 from her mother. They turned the phones off simultaneously. August, Dae-young confirmed. Tanzania, Jada agreed. And then we find out if some legacies are worth rewriting. She extended her hand one final time. He took it. The electric current that had sparked between them in the beginning had transformed into something else now. Partnership, conspiracy, the recognition that they were bound by more than matching tattoos and ancestral secrets. They were bound by the choice to break free. The maps lay spread across the table. 2 halves of a puzzle that had waited 7 decades to be completed. Their tattoos held the key. Their ancestors had made sure of that. But what they did with what they found, that would be entirely their decision. Some fortunes were inherited. Others were stolen. And some were earned through the audacity to rewrite history carved into your skin. Thanks for watching, viewers. Since you made it this far, take out time to like the video and subscribe to our channel.